This is Jane. I'm making a complicated video that covers over 22-year period. It's a really a devastation of a It's not a devastation because it was a casual friendship, but over the years I've realized that this person is really driven by self-involvement and always contouring her situation to her advantage over other people. So I met this person in 2001. Her and my other friend that I'd known for over 10 years visited my apartment in Boyle Heights, which is East LA, and they stayed for a few days. At the time, my friend Marguerite, I've known for over 10 years, and she brought a friend named Keisha with her to East LA from San Francisco. They were both living in the Kenmore, and which is a hotel where artists and students live, and they do little jobs in exchange for rent. So she came to my house and she was depressed about a German guy who broke up with her after 1 year of dating. But keep in mind, it was she was only between the ages of 21 and 22, so it was a first time love thing. And I'll get back into that revelation later. They visited and they left. Then she came back a few years later and she was in med school for alternative medicine. And she lived in Orange County in a shared room space. And she lived there down there, I would say about 6 months. And then she decided to drop out. Well, she came to visit me when I was living in the valley at this point. I was in the San Fernando Valley, and she stole some clothes from her medical student roommate. I also helped her out with food, and I helped her buy food because she was broke. Then I think she went back to Miami. A few years later, which I don't know the time frame, she moved back to San Francisco because, just a moment, she met another another European guy, white and rich, that she lived with for 12 years. During this time, she completed her degree and she finished her degree at a San Francisco college, and she got some low-level jobs as a recruiter, like on college campuses. Eventually, she trickled in and got a job, I think around 2009, with Facebook, and she stayed there 8 years. She became a recruiter. She dealt with high-end people, and she was in charge of recruiting software engineers, and people with different components of engineer specializations. She managed a team. Well, I found out on a recent trip to Orlando, where she lives now, that she said Facebook was highly competitive, very racist, and so cutthroat that oftentimes Asian, especially Chinese and other of Asian descents, would kill themselves either at home or at the property of Facebook. Like, that's how bad the competition was. Well, there were some people who came into the Facebook human resources and didn't want Keisha as a boss because she claimed that it was because she was black. So after a while, when these employees joined her team, the people that she had indicated were racist towards her, she would make up stories and put on improvement plans to secretly punish them for their biasness. Now, maybe she overheard a comment and she just assumed they were naturally racist. Maybe she had a particular interaction with them, but either way, she was using her job as leverage to punish people who were trying to earnestly produce work in the recruiting division of Facebook. Fast forward a couple years, she left her Polish boyfriend in 2021 and moved back to Orlando, which is not her original place of birth, it's Miami. But she lived there and she chose a nice apartment and she started working for Amazon. She said the job was a lot easier. They were given a lot of directions on how to do the recruitment, and they had daily meetings, and the meetings generally went smooth. It was just, task to task, doing what you were supposed to within your realm. It was a very high paying job and it was higher than Facebook. After working there 9 months, she decided to take medical leave because she was distraught over her past and how her European boyfriend treated her. One time she was at a Facebook party in a gated community in the Silicon Valley that was, definitely rich and isolated and not anyone could pass through. So the party was going on and there were like probably 12 people there. There was a bunch of engineering guys from social media companies who had picked out Asian wives, and the guy hosting the party was Asian. Towards the end of the evening, when it got dark out, one of the Asian guys said, well, we all better get going home before Keisha gets shot by a bullet through the head in this neighborhood. So she, which I understand in this situation, she got emotional about it. And by the time she got to her car, she had a meltdown in front of all these upscale, non-emotional engineers and social media people. They displayed no compassion or little compassion and concern for the offhanded comment the Asian dude made. The moral of the story is, if she continues to have breakdowns in front of non-caring people, she can't expect a social transaction that's going to be beneficial to her situation. In this case, she misjudged it. And even if it was a natural emotional reaction, within that time period, she lost all those friends from the party, and her boyfriend's friends didn't really communicate with him after the party. Then there were a few more incidents that she told me about, which led me to the difficult situation of our friendship decaying. One was that she drove into a very exclusive gated community in Miami. She wanted to look around the place. It was houses and, like it was a land surface. It wasn't like condos next to each other that in an enclosed building. It was like a house here, and a house there. It was gated and it was managed by security forces. Well, she got into the gate. She followed a guy through the gate, and within minutes, 5 Miami police officers surrounded her car and subtly threatened her and asked what she's doing there, questioned her, and told her to leave, basically, because she was unauthorized. She kind of played dumb in the sense where she said, well, I'm just here looking around. I'm sorry. Don't take offense. But then she made remarks later that she smarted off to one or two of them, which is not a good idea, as we know, in American society. I'm not saying Black people have to be like obedient, but in situations like that, like there was a situation in Kentucky where a Black woman was killed after being pulled over because she didn't appear to be cooperative. So whether it's fair or not, if you want to keep your life, basically just do as they say and follow directions. We know all about the other ones like Philando Castile, Laquan McDonald, Michael Brown. We've covered all that on my radio show. The basic fact of the matter is I'm sorry she ended up in that position, but she put herself there. Then she told me this summer she was over by CVS in her wealthy neighborhood of Baldwin Park, and she had a panic attack after she got out of the car and she couldn't breathe and she fell to the street. And nobody had any mercy on her and they thought she was on drugs. So I guess if you're collapsing on the street and like you're ready to pass out, I know in Minnesota people would help you. But apparently in this wealthy part of Orlando, nobody did. So then I was out there in December. I hadn't seen her in 13 years. I had gone to visit her in 2011 up in the, up by San Jose where she was living with her boyfriend. And that went fine. Well, we reconnected our friendship probably in the middle of 2023. And at that time, she was prospering at a company. She decided to take 1.5 to 2 years off because she could not manage her emotions regarding her breakup with her Polish boyfriend. I guess towards the end, he was cold. And she also revealed to me the first European guy she dated way back in like 2002. He treated her like dirt at the end and told her point blank at the breakup session that I believe that I might be prejudiced authentically and I'm breaking up with you because I think I'm prejudiced, meaning that he doesn't regard black people as equal to himself. So he used a non-politically correct way to break up with someone. But to make matters worse, he never called her again, and she was a young girl who had been in love with him. This newer guy that she dated in the last few years, several years, was attentive. He helped her pay all her bills. He bought her a car. She lived there rent-free for at least half the time. There was no complaints on that end. But towards the end, she was not happy with him. And she told me she name called him and they got into numerous fights and they were distant. I'm not trying to air her laundry. I'm just trying to reveal a conclusion. So she took 1.5 to 2 years off for this person who she wasn't compatible with. He never proposed marriage. And then she seems to put herself in situations with emotional bondage to white people, and then she's not satisfied when these people don't respond to her in a certain way, like overly sensitive or comforting or lovable. Like I grew up in a Scandinavian Stoic family in Minnesota, and my dad rarely showed his emotions. The only time I saw him cry is when my daughter died of a heart transplant. So I'm familiar with that type of cultural structure. Basically, then, on the last day I was visiting, which was about the fourth day in Orlando, that I made time to go visit her, even though I'm the one who works 7 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year. I took time off from my schedule to visit her, and I had a good time. But the last night I didn't go to bed till 2:30 or 3. I was wound up, and she told me at 4 I had to drive her to the hospital. First she called the paramedics, and they told her her problem was not worthy of an ER visit. It was hip pain caused by walking pneumonia, which she later discovered. And she had the EMT guy carry her like a marriage threshold to her vehicle and then I drove her to ER. The first ER she went to, there was a doctor and a nurse there primarily. We got her in the room. She was there about 20 minutes with her dog that she expected to take, which I felt like was a distraction because if a person's in that much pain, they shouldn't bring their dog. and it's also against hospital regulations. So she told me after 20 minutes that the doctor nor the nurse appeared sympathetic to her and she wants to leave. She made me wheel her way all the way to the car. The security guard was going to keep her there a minute while I went and got the vehicle, but she insisted no, I would push the wheelchair straight to the car. So then she got in the car, and we shut the door gently, and I drove her to the next ER. By that time, it was 6:30 in the morning. We left the house initially at 4:10. She got there with her dog, and they said, like, you can have your dog here, but normally only on graveyard because then people started coming in. So then she went to a room. They did some tests. I went in there like an hour later to tell her what was up, and she was screaming and her dog was barking like an all get out. So then I walked outside her room, and the hospital personnel pulled me aside and said, "What's wrong with her? We don't really understand why her hip and leg hurt. Do you know her medical background?" I gave them a brief explanation, but I didn't know any of her meds. They asked me to take the dog home, and I said, I'll talk to her about it. I went back in the room, and she refused to send the dog home. And she ordered me to go home and nap because I had to leave at 1 o'clock that day to go to a different part of the state and rent a car. So I went home, I slept, I showered, I came back. Then I forgot my insulin in her fridge. I had to go back again. So then I dropped her key fob and car off at the local hospital. And then she made a comment that she has to go to a pharmacy to get meds. And I made a comment to her that I can't stay any longer. My Uber's outside, and my friend in another part of the state agreed me to take me to the airport the following day. So I only had 20, I would say a little under 24 hours left in the state, and I had to go visit my friend that I originally planned. She had 2 cousins nearby. And then I didn't hear from her the rest of the day. And then the following day, she texted me and told me I should have stayed all the way till the end of my trip to wait on her, even though she had local relatives nearby, that I was a rotten friend, blah, blah, blah. And then she blocked my number so I couldn't reply to her. So then I emailed her and I said, I was overtired. I spent 8 hours serving you. I brought you to the 2 different hospitals, and I came back with your vehicle later. And I did the best I could. I was exhausted. And within my emotional capacity, I'm sensitive to noise and stuff. I just didn't think I was the person for the job to handle the rest of the day for her. So I told her, I made it simple. I just said it was too much for me. I couldn't handle it. And then, of course, she called me again or texted me and sent me a litany of all the things I've ever done wrong in my life and what she's not satisfied with, including calling me autistic. I was born in 1960. I'm not autistic. There was no diagnoses back then or diagnostic codes, or there was no structure in schools for stuff like that. So basically, I left her a voicemail. It went straight to voicemail, and I told her, all the beefs that you have in life, whether you're collapsing on a street or driving into gated communities and getting harassed by cops, it's almost like, okay, I have to back up a sec because I have to tell you something about during Hurricane Milton. She picked a $600 a night hotel to stay in because she quoted that she wanted to be treated well and be treated better than the general population. So she's bought her way, and I hate to put it this way, but she's bought her way into white society And then when white society and the people surrounding her doesn't meet her expectations, they're chump change. They're bad people to her. But she doesn't have the socially constructed intellect to challenge the system in a proper way. And what I mean by that is I had an anti-racist organization in Wisconsin. The white people didn't respond well, but a few minorities in the community did. I had a friend in South Central near Watts. I would sleep at her house every now and then. I wouldn't go into Watts and lay down on the street and beg for help for a medical condition. No matter how much pain or suffering I had, I would crampily drive my way in my own vehicle to the nearest hospital and get help. I wouldn't petition a community full of strangers for help. There's a certain protocol in society that we all have to face, and we have to know the mitigating situation and conditions in order to approach that. So anyways, I'm disappointed in her as a person, and we really only had a lighthearted friendship talking about Netflix and some occupational conflict. But she pretty much indicated to me that she left Amazon to meet her own needs, and she didn't really examine the value she had in getting such an important job with good pay and maintaining that job. She was only supposed to take 3 months off, and she took over a year, like almost 2 years, and they had no room in the company left for her when she came back. So my decision also to end the friendship is one of gratitude. Knowing and being thankful for what you have, not trying to get more than what you deserve, including stealing from Uber Eats. She would claim many times that she didn't get the food when she did. And she's the sorry one out because she can't acknowledge the fact she was already triple and double blessed, but still feel like she had a diss and rip off society. That's it. I'm done with this whole thing.